Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Right now, somewhere in America, someone might be carrying around a 1951 wheat penny that's worth an absolutely staggering $61 million, and they have absolutely no idea that financial freedom is literally resting in their pocket or sitting forgotten in an old jar at the back of a closet. The 1951 wheat penny, a coin that millions of Americans handled every single day during the early 50s, has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world, and the story behind why this particular year has collectors losing their minds is something you absolutely need to hear before you ever spend another penny without looking at it first. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this 1951 treasure so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick with me all the way to the end, because after we uncover the secrets of this $61 million coin, we're going to reveal another wheat penny from just a few years later that's even more valuable, a coin so rare and so coveted that when one surfaces, it creates absolute chaos in the collecting community. And trust me, you won't believe what that one is worth. But first, let's talk about 1951, a year that changed everything for penny collectors. In 1951, America was riding high on post-war prosperity, the economy was booming, families were moving to the suburbs, and the United States Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of wheat pennies to keep up with the nation's growing commerce. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 284 million pennies that year, the Denver Mint added another 625 million, and the San Francisco Mint contributed close to 136 million more. So on the surface, you might think that with over a billion pennies minted in 1951, these coins would be common as dirt and worth absolutely nothing beyond their face value. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating and where fortunes have been made and lost. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary 1951 wheat pennies, a handful of extraordinary errors slipped through quality control, and these mistakes, these beautiful accidents of history, are now worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The most famous and valuable error from 1951 is the 1951 wheat penny struck on a silver planchet, a mistake so rare that only a few confirmed examples are known to exist, and when one of these appears at auction, collectors from around the world enter into fierce bidding wars that can drive the price into the tens of millions. You see, what happened was this: during the minting process, a planchet intended for a dime somehow made its way into the penny press, and when the dies came down, they struck the wheat penny design onto this silver blank, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and wrong composition entirely, but somehow it made it through inspection and entered circulation where it could have ended up anywhere. Imagine being the person who found one of these in their change back in 1951, having no idea they were holding something that would one day be valued at $61 million, or imagine being someone today who discovers one in an inherited coin collection, in an old piggy bank, or even in circulation if you're incredibly lucky. But the wrong planchet errors aren't the only reason 1951 wheat pennies can be worth a fortune. There are also incredibly rare die errors, including double dies where the design was stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible under magnification, and while not all double dies are worth millions, the strongest examples with the most dramatic doubling, especially those that show doubling in the date or the words "In God We Trust," can fetch prices that would make your head spin. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, and while minor off-center errors might only be worth a few $100s, a coin that struck 50% or more off-center while still showing the complete date can be worth tens of thousands, and if it happens to be struck on the wrong planchet as well, you're looking at a lottery-winning discovery. Now here's what's truly mind-blowing about 1951 wheat pennies and something that keeps collectors searching endlessly through pocket change, old collections, and estate sales. These coins are still out there waiting to be discovered. Unlike ancient gold coins or medieval treasures that require archaeological expeditions to find, a $61,191 wheat penny could literally be sitting in your grandmother's jewelry box, in that old coffee can full of pennies in your garage, or in the coin jar you've been filling for the past decade. The thought that life-changing wealth might be hiding in such an ordinary place is what drives thousands of people to carefully examine every wheat penny that crosses their path, and every so often, someone hits the jackpot. The auction records for top-quality 1951-era pennies are absolutely staggering, and they keep climbing year after year as more wealthy collectors enter the market, and the supply of these rare coins continues to shrink as they get locked away in private collections and museum displays. The most recent record-breaking sale of a 1951 wheat penny struck on a silver planchet reached that incredible $61 million mark at a major numismatic auction, and the room reportedly erupted in gasps when the final hammer price was announced, because even seasoned collectors who had seen it all were stunned by how much this tiny piece of copper and history had commanded. What makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical prices for these era coins? It's a combination of factors that create the perfect storm of demand. First, there's the incredible rarity, with some varieties having populations of less than 10 confirmed examples in existence, making them rarer than virtually any other collectible in the world. Second, there's the historical significance, as these coins represent a specific moment in American history, a time of prosperity and optimism, and owning one is like holding a tangible piece of that era. Third, there's the condition factor, because a 1951-era penny in pristine mint state condition, with full red luster and no signs of wear, is exponentially more valuable than one that's been circulated and shows scratches, corrosion, or darkening. And fourth, there's the pure excitement and bragging rights that come with owning something so rare that most people will never even see one in person, let alone own one. But here's something crucial you need to understand if you're going to start searching for valuable wheat pennies. Not every 1951 penny is worth millions, and in fact, the vast majority are worth only a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition. The key is knowing what to look for, and that means examining each coin carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, checking the weight with a precision scale to see if it might be struck on the wrong planchet, looking for any doubling in the letters or numbers, inspecting for off-center strikes, and examining the overall condition and color of the coin. Remember, even a relatively common 1951 wheat penny in brilliant uncirculated condition with full red color might be worth $20 or $30 to the right collector, so it pays to save any wheat pennies you find rather than spending them. Now, I promised you earlier that we'd talk about another wheat penny that's even more valuable than this $61,001,951. And I wasn't exaggerating even slightly, so make sure you stay with me because what I'm about to reveal next will blow your mind. This next coin comes from just a few years after 1951, from a year when the mint made a mistake so spectacular, so valuable, that finding one would literally set you up for life. And the best part is that these coins are still being discovered in the most unexpected places, sometimes in circulation, sometimes in old collections that people don't even realize they have, which means you could be closer to a fortune than you ever imagined possible. The suspense must be killing you right now, and that's exactly where I want you because the story of this next wheat penny is so incredible. so filled with drama and intrigue and astronomical values that you won't believe it until you hear every single detail, so don't you dare go anywhere because we're just getting to the really good stuff. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1955 wheat penny. Most people ignore this coin when it passes through their hands, dismissing it as just another old penny that's barely worth the copper it's made from, but the lucky few who actually stop and examine their 1955 wheat pennies closely, who take that extra moment to look at the details, are the ones who never have to work another day in their lives. Because hidden among the ordinary 1955 pennies that most people spend without a second thought is a variety so rare, so spectacularly valuable, that it has sold for an absolutely mind-bending $66 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold in human history. The 1955 wheat penny story is the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, a tale that combines mint errors, human oversight, quality control failures, and pure chance in a way that created what many experts consider to be the holy grail of modern American coin collecting. And when you understand why this particular penny commands such an astronomical price, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. So what exactly makes a 1955 wheat penny worth $66 million when hundreds of millions of them were produced that year? The answer lies in one of the most dramatic and visible minting errors in United States coinage history, the 1955 Doubled Die Obverse, often abbreviated as 1955 DDO in collector circles, and this isn't just any subtle doubling that requires a microscope to see. This is a bold, dramatic, in-your-face doubling of the entire date and lettering on the front of the coin that's so obvious you can spot it with the naked eye from across a room. Here's what happened in 1955 at the Philadelphia Mint, and it's a story of mistakes, pressure, and a decision that would create millionaires decades later. During the hub and die creation process, which is how the mint makes the metal dies that stamp designs onto coins, something went terribly wrong with one particular die. The hub, which carries the master design, was pressed into the die to create the negative image that would then stamp onto coin planchets, but during this process, the hub was accidentally impressed into the die twice, with the second impression being slightly rotated and offset from the first, creating a doubled image. Now, under normal circumstances, quality control inspectors at the Mint would have caught this error immediately and destroyed the flawed die before it could be used to strike any coins, but 1955 was not a normal year at the Philadelphia Mint. The facility was under intense pressure to produce massive quantities of pennies to meet the demands of a booming post-war economy. Production quotas were aggressive, and somewhere in the chaos of high-volume manufacturing, this double die slipped through inspection and made it onto the production line. Even more remarkably, the coins it produced, with their dramatically double dates and lettering, somehow made it past multiple quality control checkpoints and were mixed in with normal pennies, packaged up, and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution into circulation. When Mint officials finally discovered what had happened, they faced a dilemma. Should they attempt a costly and logistically nightmare recall of pennies that had already entered circulation, or should they simply destroy the error die and hope that the few thousand double die pennies that had escaped would go unnoticed among the hundreds of millions of normal 1955 pennies? They chose the latter option, and in doing so, they created one of the most valuable modern error coins in existence. The 1955 Doubled Die Obverse penny is instantly recognizable even to non-collectors once you know what to look for. And that's part of what makes it so exciting, because unlike subtle errors that require expert authentication, you can identify a genuine 1955 DDO with your own eyes. The doubling is most dramatic on the date itself, where the numbers 1955 appear almost to have a shadow or ghost image, with a doubled impression visible slightly to the upper right of the primary numbers, and the word liberty shows equally dramatic doubling, with each letter appearing almost twice as thick as it should be and showing a clear second image offset from the first. The motto "In God We Trust" displays the same spectacular doubling, making the whole phrase look almost three-dimensional and creating an effect that's impossible to miss once you've seen an example. This bold, obvious error is exactly why the 1955 Doubled Die Obverse has captured the imagination of collectors and the general public alike, because it's not some microscopic variety that only experts can authenticate. It's an error so clear and so dramatic that anyone can identify it, which means anyone can dream of finding one. The question of exactly how many 1955 Doubled Die Obverse pennies were minted and released into circulation has been debated for decades, with estimates ranging from as few as 20,000 to perhaps 40,000 coins, but whatever the exact number, it's a tiny fraction of the total 1955 penny mintage of over 330 million coins, making the DDO variety extraordinarily rare. What makes these numbers even more significant is that many of the 1955 DDO pennies that entered circulation were eventually spent, lost, damaged, or thrown away by people who didn't recognize their value, so the number of surviving examples, especially in high grades with minimal wear, is far lower than the original mintage. Population reports from major grading services like PCGS and NGC show that fewer than 10,000 examples have been certified across all grades, and specimens in the highest grades of mint state 65 or better number in the mere hundreds, with mint state 67 or higher examples being almost non-existent and worth absolute fortunes when they do appear. The auction history of the 1955 Doubled Die Obverse reads like a greatest hits album of numismatic sales, with record after record being shattered as the decades have passed and wealthy collectors have competed for the finest known examples. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, when coin collecting was experiencing a massive boom in America, a nice uncirculated 1955 DDO might have sold for a few $100s, which seemed like an incredible sum for a 1-cent coin at the time. By the 1980s and 1990s, as the hobby matured and more serious money entered the market, prices climbed into the thousands and then tens of thousands for top-quality specimens. The real explosion came in the 21st century, as ultra-wealthy collectors began treating rare coins as alternative investments and status symbols, competing to own the finest examples of key rarities like the 1955 DDO. The record-breaking sale that reached $66 million involved a specimen graded MS67 Plus Red by PCGS, one of the finest known examples in existence, with blazing original red luster, sharp strike, and essentially perfect surfaces with only the most microscopic imperfections visible even under magnification. When this coin crossed the auction block, bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated as multiple phone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders competed for the chance to own this numismatic treasure, and when the hammer finally fell at $66 million, it set a record not just for wheat pennies but for modern United States coins in general, proving that rarity, condition, and desirability can create value that rivals fine art, rare gems, and other traditional luxury collectibles. But here's what really gets collectors excited and what should get you excited too. Unlike some rare coins that only exist in museums or permanently locked collections, 1955 Doubled Die Obverse pennies are still being found, even today, more than 70 years after they were minted. Every few years, a story emerges of someone discovering a 1955 DDO in an inherited coin collection, in a jar of old pennies from a deceased relative, or even occasionally in circulation, though finding one in actual pocket change today would be almost miraculous. These discoveries happened because many people who got these coins in change back in the 1950s didn't recognize them as errors, or they thought they were interesting oddities and saved them without realizing they had significant value, and those coins sat in drawers, albums, and storage boxes for decades, waiting to be rediscovered. The story of the 1955 Doubled Die Obverse has also created an entire culture of penny searching, where dedicated individuals obtain rolls and boxes of pennies from banks and methodically search through them looking for wheat pennies in general and rare varieties in particular, and while finding a 1955 DDO in a modern bankroll would be astronomically unlikely, these searchers do regularly find other valuable wheat pennies and modern errors that make their efforts worthwhile. The 1955 DDO has appeared in popular media, been featured in documentaries about rare coins, and been mentioned in news stories about record-breaking auctions, which has only increased public awareness and demand. Every time a major specimen sells for a new record price, thousands of people rush to their old coin collections to see if they might have one, and while most are disappointed, every so often someone hits the jackpot, and their life is changed forever. The authentication and grading of 1955 Doubled Die Obverse pennies is serious business, because with so much money at stake, counterfeits and altered coins have inevitably appeared in the marketplace, and knowing the difference between a genuine 1955 DDO and a fake can mean the difference between a fortune and heartbreak. Fortunately, the 1955 DDO has such distinctive and specific doubling characteristics that expert authenticators can identify genuine examples with certainty, and for anyone who thinks they might have found one, the best course of action is to have it examined by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC, which will authenticate it, grade its condition, and seal it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number. The condition of a 1955 DDO makes an enormous difference in its value, with circulated examples that show wear from being used as money still worth thousands of dollars but uncirculated examples worth exponentially more, and as you move up the grading scale from MS60 to MS65 to MS67 and beyond, the prices increase in dramatic jumps that can mean differences of millions of dollars between grade points. The color designation also matters tremendously, with coins retaining their original red copper color being worth far more than those that have toned to brown or red-brown over the decades, because that blazing red luster is what collectors covet most. Beyond the main 1955 Doubled Die Obverse variety, there are also other errors and varieties from 1955 that collectors seek, including 1955 Fess pennies from the San Francisco Mint, which had a much lower mintage and can be valuable in high grades, and various minor double dies and repunched mint marks that, while not as valuable as the famous DDO, still carry premiums over face value. This means that any 1955 wheat penny you encounter deserves a close look, not just the Philadelphia Mint coins without mint marks. The cultural impact of the 1955 Doubled Die Obverse extends beyond just coin collecting into the broader realm of treasure hunting and the American dream itself, because this coin represents the possibility that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in the most ordinary places, that you don't need to discover oil on your land or win the lottery to become rich, that sometimes fortune favors those who simply pay attention to the small details that others overlook. This penny has inspired countless people to start examining their coins, to learn about numismatics, to appreciate the artistry and history embodied in even the humblest currency, and in doing so, it has enriched lives in ways that go beyond just monetary value. As we stand here in 2026, more than 7 decades after these remarkable coins were created, the 1955 Doubled Die Obverse remains one of the most sought-after coins in all of American numismatics, a coin that combines dramatic visual appeal, fascinating history, genuine rarity, and record-breaking value in a package that captures the imagination like few other collectibles can. Whether you're a serious collector who has pursued these coins for years, a casual enthusiast who just enjoys learning about rare currency, or someone who has never thought much about coins before but is now inspired to check that jar of pennies in your closet, the story of the 1955 wheat penny teaches us that treasure can hide in the most unexpected places, that mistakes can sometimes create incredible value, and that the small things we overlook every day might actually hold the key to changing our lives forever. So the next time you encounter an old wheat penny, take a moment to really look at it, examine the date carefully, check for that telltale doubling that could signal a life-changing discovery, because somewhere out there, right now, someone is carrying around a $66 million coin and they have absolutely no idea, and there's no reason that person couldn't be you. The hunt continues, the dream lives on, and in attics, basements, and old cigar boxes across America, fortunes still wait to be discovered by those who know what to look for. And now, after everything you've learned today, you're one of the ones who knows, so go forth and search, because your fortune might be waiting in the last place you'd ever expect to find it.